I'm Ray from the Teach Better team, and I have two incredible guests with me. I'm so excited for this week's Master Chat recap, where we are talking all about the Twitter chat that we just had for the past hour, and it was all on social emotional learning. So first off, Tiffany Ott is here with us, and we have Todd Finley, who was our incredible host and expert. So I'm going to go to you first, Tiffany. How was the chat?
You know what I always say? It was awesome, and it really was. On the pre-chat live video we did, I talked about how I was excited to get some like specific strategies for working with students, and I think I got that and a whole lot more. It was one of those times, you know how some chats leave you feeling like all the feels and that was awesome? This was one of them. So I'm very happy.
Todd, how do you feel like the chat went?
That was intense. It felt, I was reading as fast as I could and also typing as fast as I could. And I like to sort of sink into things and reflect on them. So I was amazed at the amount of participants you had, and the richness of the comments was really fantastic.
You know, Todd, I think we're notorious for, we do this hour chat. And of course, we do the recap after, that's usually about 30 minutes. And then Tiffany and I always joke that we spend another hour tonight looking through all the tweets that we missed. And then all the next day, we're like constantly searching through the hashtag Mastery Chat feed to really just like soak it all in. Because you're right, there is no time for reflection in a chat that intense.
Yeah.
I think that we need to put a clip together, Ray, because every time we ask a guest moderator how they're feeling, it's the same response. Whoa, that was intense, because it's an hour of just nonstop, like back and forth and reading and absorbing, and it's emotionally draining and emotionally charging somehow in the same hour. And what you said, Todd, the community that is Mastery Chat started a little over a year ago, maybe a year and a couple months ago, and the people that we have in Mastery Chat every week just keep coming back every week, and there's such a strong cohort, and we learn so much together. So I just want to take a minute and say thank you for sharing your voice to that conversation and becoming a part of the Mastery Chat family. And just so you know, once you're a part of the Mastery Chat family, you just never get to escape.
True.
You know, I've done a couple Edutopia chats, which have big numbers, but the difference is that you have literally 6 people who are dedicated to just that for the entire time. So yeah, it's intense. So you're doing a lot.
Yes,
absolutely.
It's busy.
So Todd, for a lot of our listeners who may not know all that you do, would you mind telling us more about how you got into education? What's your education journey look like? What are you doing now to support education? Because a lot of the participants that participated today have connections with you, which was really cool to see this whole new kind of group of the Mastery Chat family come and join us today. So tell us a little about yourself.
Okay, well, I'll do my 1-minute bio. So I was trained in elementary and secondary education, specifically English, and then I taught for a few years both elementary education and then high school English in Minnesota. Then in graduate school, I got a PhD in curriculum and instruction with an emphasis in literacy. And so since then, for the last 20 years, I've been an education professor at East Carolina University, where I train secondary English teachers. And then I also am an assistant editor for Edutopia, and I've been working with them for about 10 years now, blogging for them.
Wow.
And then now I put out these things on on Twitter now called Brain Blasts.
I love those.
Thank you.
I love those, Todd.
Thank you. I kind of think of them as like visual essays, because I'm trying to have something that's kind of grabs people's attention and is practical. So that's the idea behind those. And I love making those. I can just do that all the time and not do anything else.
They kind of almost have like a sketchnoting feel, if you. It's a lot of information presented in a visual way that makes the connections between the information a little more, a little easier to like chew on. Like, so I really like them. And guys, if everybody watching, you need to go check out Todd's he's got a website, they're on Twitter. So you just really need to check out his stuff because I think they're very helpful. So you like designing those? You design those yourself, Todd?
I do. They take a while.
Yes.
Yeah, they take a while to do, but yeah, it's fun just associating the visuals and trying to mess with the design. I'm sure in a couple of years I'll be really unhappy with how they look now, and it'll change. But I think at some point we'll move into maybe animation of some sort.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it, because I create designs for the team for like tweeting out, and the ones that I created a year ago, I'm like, my gosh, they're awful.
Yeah.
Compared to what I do now. It's funny. So tell me, Todd, social emotional learning. Clearly, it's something that is very important to you, significant to you. So what brought you to that realm, and why does it hold such an important place in your heart?
That's a good question. So about 7 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, I was commissioned to do a whole bunch of research for Edutopia. Part of that was involving social emotional learning. And so that's been identified as one of the 6 key areas that Edutopia believes in and researches. Georgia Lucas loves social emotional learning. A lot of his work is connected with CASEL, which deals with documenting that, like best practices for social emotional learning. Yeah. So I went in it thinking, well, okay, well, this will be kind of interesting. But then what really surprised me is the enormous amount of evidence that says that the amount of SEL work that's done with students has dramatic impact on students' test scores, achievement tests, and particularly with students who are living in poverty. One second, my dog is making a bunch of noise. It's distracting me. Sorry.
I know, you're fine.
Anytime we can have a dog in our live feed, we're in a good spot.
Coco's wondering, what's going on? Why do you take this away from me? So the evidence is really overwhelming. In fact, the research is so powerful that I found it unbelievable. But I kept looking at all these other studies of things about how important it is. And then the question was, well, how do you implement this? And there's a whole bunch of programs that are geared for the elementary grades, but middle school and high school, they need the same thing. So
we're middle school people by training. Yes, they
do. So they really do. And so for me, the question was, how do you, you don't want to just say, okay, for the next 2 days, we're going to learn social emotional learning, and then we're done, because kids don't learn that way. So for me, the challenge was to integrate it into class time in a way that was efficient. And so I tried doing a few different things. So one is that I would, every time I gave a test, and I do these mini quizzes every day, like really low stakes, not very many questions. Like one or two of the questions would always be a social emotional learning question, like, which of your classmates would be the best to lead us out of a zombie apocalypse? And why? Or,
I love that.
Yeah, or what's the most beautiful thing you've seen? There's a whole bunch of different kinds of questions. And really, I'm asking questions that I would really like to know the answers to. Like, who among us has the best social skills and why? Or who seems the most relaxed and focused? So we ask these questions, and what happens is students start to understand themselves and disclose themselves and connect with other students. And that's just it. It's just like students really like to share about themselves with each other, but they don't really have the mechanisms in school to do that. So then they kind of do it inappropriately or subversively. They're always trying to connect and build relationships. And so this provides an avenue to do that. So, and then also, like, before a small group activity, the first question will always be a warm-up, which is, what's your breakfast routine? What's your go-to cereal? Things like that. And so I know it's successful if the question makes people laugh or go ah. And so you get that response, which is an emotional response, and then that kind of loosens them up for the rest of the group work. So what I found actually is that my end of year evaluations were going sky high, and it was only because of these I think of them as kind of putting a Godiva chocolate in the curriculum. Just this one little thing that happens every single class that I look forward to and the students look forward to, that doesn't really dominate the class. And so that's been fantastic.
It's like their little micro nibbles. You know what I mean?
It's like microdosing LSD. Yeah.
Yes, right. It's just these little bits that,
not too much.
I think that some teachers do that very naturally.
Yes.
And some teachers don't and are not sure how to support that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I think I really like the way you're kind of explicitly laying out, here's how I do it, and here's what I ask, and here's some examples. And I really like that. Oh, Beth posted a good comment. Ray, can you pop that up?
Yeah, we're getting a lot of good questions, Todd. I really think that you're going to have to keep this conversation going for a really long time because these are really interesting. What I'm finding, though, is a lot of us are focusing our comments on really finding ways to make it purposeful every single day. Like you said, really incorporating this type of learning, these type of ideas in our classrooms, not just on Mondays, not just on Fridays, but really every single day in class. So the first thing that was posted, Beth had a question about how you have students identify other students and if that's an issue with calling other students out. Would you mind just touching on that?
How do I identify other students?
Are you having them do that privately? Are you having them shout out other students? Is there any concerns there that you've interacted with?
That's a great question. So one of the things that I will do is I use Socrative a lot, which you might not know that it's a formative assessment tool. It's free. Yeah. And the neat thing about it is I can do these quiz questions. And so I plant one of my social emotional learning questions in there. And then what I can do is I can show students the dashboard that showcases all of the answers without the names attached. So the people who are saying these things are anonymous. But I also can preview the answers to make sure everything's, not too embarrassing for anybody. Yeah. But what I've also found that is over time that the students get more and more close and they're sharing more positive things with each other. So I haven't had anyone ever complain. I should say that's not exactly true. I do this one exercise at the end of all of my classes, which is I have students write letters to the students in class that they learn the most from. And I like doing that because oftentimes it'll be people in the class that don't talk that much or don't really perform in class, but they're doing subtle things like within groups that are helpful. So I like calling them out, but I had this one student who did not get a letter from anybody, and she actually left in tears. So it's made me question whether or not to do that particular one, or whether I have to do more to make sure everyone's getting something in that activity. But I do sort of like calling attention to the people who are doing important work that serves the mission of the class.
Well, and you touched on a few things there. One was, as you were implementing this, SEL focus in your classroom, there was a balance between, highlighting students, but also keeping some things private, and how that's kind of like a gradual release process of building that culture over time in your classroom. But then, as you pointed out, that last instance where you tried something and it maybe didn't go so well, that does allow you to reflect. And so we need to acknowledge that while we want to avoid situations that don't result in the end piece that we really want, it still gives us good reflection that you still had a goal in mind and you still want to meet that goal of trying to celebrate students that are really being leaders and helping others succeed. But how do we do it in a way that doesn't have one student leaving in tears? And finding that balance is really important.
It's continuous tweaking, continuous growth, you know what I mean? It's the same kind of thing that we're trying to build in our students and support their learning in that way. And it's the same Ray, we talk all the time about failure. I love failure. Failure is great. I literally in the classroom, I will cheer when a student gets something epically wrong. And I always say, guys, now we actually get to learn something, and how awesome is that? And so when we can instill that same belief and attitude in what we do as teachers, I think I'm sorry, I'm rambling. I get excited. I think some people are hesitant to kind of use some of these strategies or really bring that SEL into their classroom because they're worried that they're not going to do it right, or they're worried that it's going to get uncomfortable when they start asking their students some of these questions or opening up the discussion around these topics. And I just want to preach to all of them, like, hey, if you do this and it fails epically, if you make a kid cry, if something didn't work perfectly, that's awesome, because we can learn from that and we can move forward and make it like really, really awesome the next time. Oh, Jeff Kaplan said celebrating failure is awesomeness. Jeff, I totally agree.
Thank you, Jeff.
Our next question here was, do you have any of these resources accessible? We have a good number of people who are watching that are loving what you're saying. You had some really great examples of what questions you ask your students to reflect on. You had some really good value there. So is this accessible? Is this kind of all in your brain? Do you tweet about this? Do you blog about this? How can people get in contact with this idea? Are there any resources for them?
Actually, I just tweeted out a brain blast. There was a list of social emotional learning questions. So there's a bunch of those there. That zombie apocalypse is on there somewhere. So there's a bunch of those. So it's on one of the brain blasts. I can find that later and send it to you or share it out. Or you can just find me on Twitter and kind of go back a little bit and you'll find the brain blast.
Awesome. This last one I love here. Bianca is sharing that she does a lot of this in her classroom, and in terms of failure, like finding the favorite no. In my classroom, my students reflect and goal set at the end of every day. And part of that reflection is like, I dare you to find a failure that you can brag about. And so it's so funny that she says, find your favorite no. I do that too, girl. I love it.
I was actually, it's kind of funny. I was in class today and I was returning a test. And so before I gave it back, I said, okay, so I need to let you know that I flunked my master's exam. And it wasn't that I just flunked it because I didn't study, because I studied for a year for it. And it wasn't that that everyone flunked it. I was only one of 3 people who flunked it, and 75 people took the test. Oh. And I talked about it feeling like being drilled in the head, and then I retook it and passed it because I figured out what I did wrong. So I kind of own up the failure is part of this thing. It's going to be okay, and also for the teachers that I'm working with, when you fail at something, that's giving you a kind of lever to help students later on who are failing to kind of talk about that. So I think it's important. Can I just mention one other thing? Both of you have this have fantastic social skills and interpersonal skills. You're very relaxed and smiling and nodding. You're leaning in.
You're like buttering us up.
I know, right?
I have to say that none of those things come naturally to me. Sometimes I've been married for 30 years, and Randy says she's a first grade teacher, and she sometimes will tell me something, and she'll remind me to have a response, and because I'll be kind of thinking in her world about what's occurring, but she's like, okay, I could use some kind of reaction now. So it's like, so I do need to be. I don't come from this from personal expertise. It's something that it's important to me that I kind of grow in anyway. But it seems like you both are naturals.
So my gosh, this is making
right. I got to interrupt you because I'm going to talk about you just for a minute. What you just said about you don't come from a place where this is natural for you. I think that is part of what makes it such a powerful thing for you to talk about. Ray, and I'm going to out you here, so whatever. When Ray was a student in school, math was very difficult for her. What did Ray choose to teach? Math. Like when we find the things that we struggle with, it can make us such a better advocate for and more understanding of the struggles that our students have. So I love that you brought that up, Todd. That's awesome.
And that was beautifully put. What a cool thing. Good for you.
Man, my comment was awful. I was going to rat on my husband for never having any promotion for me either.
My husband either.
Sometimes, it's kind of strange. My daughter's 24 and she has a boyfriend, and I just say, so occasionally guys just need some concrete help. They're sometimes just don't know intuitively what to do. So you just have to say, so this would be a good time for you to do this. And after a while, you won't have to do that anymore. But sometimes we just need to be told.
So I love seeing that Beth also has this doesn't relate. You know, all these skills to be able to, you know, hold a conversation with others and appear interested when people are speaking and make strong eye contact. Those really blend itself very well with what our Twitter chat was all focused on. Is like building this entire student, not just the content, you know, not to blab on, but like this is something I'm so passionate about, which is why I was so excited for you to host tonight, because we really need to tap in to not just teaching 2 + 2 in a math class or talk about pre-algebra or have every discussion possible on the placement of your math student, right? But really trying to have conversations about how life skills, being reflective and being able to practice having eye contact and sitting up straight when you're learning. I mean, these are life skills that we have to fit in. And you actually, Todd, had a question about how we can, how was it phrased? It was something along the lines of, what do you say when people say they don't have time to teach these skills because there's too much content? They have to, you know, teach the test. I loved that question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wasn't that the first one?
I think it was the first one. Yeah.
It was the first one. Yeah.
Yeah. Came right out of the gate with that. So I want to take just a quick second. Todd, was there any moment or tweet or conversation during the chat that really kind of stood out to you as yes, or made you think more or something like that? I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Yeah, it's a blur for me. So I'm going to have to think about that for
I'll go to Ray first then. Ray, it's your turn.
Gosh, the one I was most stuck on, and I was participating in the chat, Todd, but I was also sharing all these questions on our Instagram, Teach Better Team Instagram, trying to get feedback from our network that exists in that media as well. And one of the ones I was incredibly stuck on was the emotion one. It was all about, you know, what makes you the most emotional in class and how do you deal with those feelings? And this was something that I immediately struggled with early on in my career. And it is not until recently that I can say I am maybe decently better at it. Like I am so emotional because I'm so invested in my students and my, you know, I have found myself more often than not early in my career getting so worked up. And so I was really excited when you shared that question. There was a lot of people responding to strategies they use to keep their cool in class and what they really do to make sure that as they're having those tough discussions with students, when something happens, when you get emotionally kind of charged up, how can you handle those appropriately and what's going on with your student that you can address in that moment? And I loved that question. It was really great for me and it was hard for me to answer and it allowed me to reflect a whole lot.
Thank you.
I love the ones that are hard to answer.
Hard.
So some of that I was informed by a guy who wrote a book called Brainstorm, Daniel Siegel. Have you heard of him?
I don't know, but I'm writing it down right now.
I did a book review of his for Edutopia at one point, so that might be a starting point to kind of learn some of the basic ideas there. But Daniel Siegel is this guy who graduated from Harvard Medical School. He's a genuine neuroscientist, and he's also an expert in mindfulness. So we have someone who's like super smart about the brain, like legitimately, not sort of, there's some people who talk about the brain in ways that don't really have any basis in neuroscience at all. It's a little bit fluffy. And so his stuff is really awesome. And he talked about how, like, for example, if someone is upset, like a student is upset, it's very hard for someone to be just completely in the red, almost out of control with anger for longer than 90 seconds. So if somehow you can get them into a spot for 90 seconds where they can just be safe, they're not going to hurt anybody, but they just calm down, then usually within 90 seconds they're going to be a little bit less red. And the other part is that you can, so what happens is there's kind of an emotional flooding that happens with the amygdala, which kind of takes over the brain. So they're just feeling intense anger or whatever. And so there's a trick you can do that also comes from him, which is if you can have them like answer something with language. So just like if you can say, give me one word about how you're feeling. So if they can say anger, as soon as they've labeled their emotions, and as soon as they've used language, they're switching out of the amygdala into the prefrontal cortex. And so so what happens is they've shifted the emphasis in the prefrontal cortex, and they're getting more control. So if you can use that language, that's important. And so, and the part about waiting for, it's a good trick, isn't it? Yeah, it's really useful.
This is why I love this chat, because it's like literally this practical ideas I can use right away. I love it.
Yeah, and it's Daniel Siegel who's really worth reading. And so there's another thing that was interesting from his research for me that was important and has to do with our topic, and that is that adolescence is now goes to age 24 now. So, and frankly, both of you look like you're still adolescents. Which is supposed to be a compliment, by the way.
No, you're
also
fine.
somewhat true.
I'm pushing 40, but I'll take it.
you're looking like my undergrads.
I'll take that. That's great. You just keep telling me that. Happiness. All right.
What was I talking about?
Adolescence till 24.
Yes.
Okay. So the research says that when you are an adolescent, if you see a neutral adult face, so if you see a 28-year-old who has a neutral face, like Ray right now, you have a neutral face. You switched it, but you have it like, here's a neutral face. So people who are over 24 will look at that face and usually go, yeah, they're thinking. It's a neutral expression.
Yeah.
But if you show the same image to adolescents, and they've done studies of this, that the adolescents will say that the adult is hostile. Well, that adult is hostile. They're angry. So what that means then is for teachers, because you're even if you're young, you're considered an authority figure and an adult. When they look at teachers who have a neutral face, sometimes they're thinking that teacher's really pissed at me. So So in other words, like something that I do, because I have a habit of squinting a lot when I'm concentrating, and so I have to tell them, so when I'm doing this, I'm not angry at you. It means I'm really concentrating on listening to you. And so then, but I also have to work to smile more, nod more, because I recognize that I'm still working with adolescents, and they are going to view me as and because they're adolescents are narcissists, they're going to think this teacher is really mad at me. So so that means that we need to advertise how much we enjoy being with them through words and by smiling, and also I tell my teachers that it's really important when you walk into a classroom that you are looking to be delighted by your students. So you're looking for, rather than like thinking about, okay, am I coherent? Am I talking okay? How do I sound? Do I sound knowledgeable? Like, rather than all this stuff, you're looking for, as you're dealing with the curriculum, you're looking for ways for students to delight you. And frankly, if they're not delighting you, you're not looking hard enough, because adolescents are really funny.
They're awesome. Yeah. Oh, this is so interesting. I am reflecting on some advice I got as an undergraduate, and I'm sure other people have gotten this advice too. Don't smile for the first X number of weeks.
It's awful. That's dumb.
And I was never successful at following that advice. If you can't tell, I kind of always have a smile on my face, and I laugh a lot and all this stuff. But I know personally teachers who like tried to follow that advice, and I got to read that book. I have to read that book that you're telling us about, because it's powerful stuff to understand how the adolescent mind works.
Yeah, thank you.
I love it.
And can I say, I'm also really enjoying the comments here, so appreciate Beth and Jeff and Bianca too.
I don't know that one.
Excuse me. Echo, stop.
Oh.
That's my Alexa going off for some reason.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love reading the comments. That's my favorite part about going live, is that we get to get this real-time feedback from the people who are watching. Ooh, Bianca needs to know the book name again.
Sure. It's called Brainstorm. I think it's called Brainstorm, or it's either Brainstorm or Mindstorm. And the author is Daniel Siegel, and I'm not sure about the spelling.
And I'll go back and find a link to that book and put the link in the comments of the video once we're done recording, as I wave my pencil at you guys.
And also, you can find YouTube videos of Daniel Siegel often summarizing his books, and he's fantastic to listen to on YouTube.
So many resources.
Can we just say hi to Tal too? Hi, Tal.
Hi, Tall.
Hi, Tom.
We know Tall. Tall's tall.
Tal is tall.
And his Twitter name is Tall Tall Teaches. It's pretty fabulous.
Nice.
So I have to say,
That's it.
oh, go ahead, Todd. Go ahead.
No, just to say that Tal has a like the interesting thing. Like, can you have too many expressions? And
Oh, yeah, that question.
I don't think that's possible, actually, because I think, it takes a while for students to know how to read you, but I think they pick up on it pretty quickly. You kind of think of them switching from room to room where they have completely different teachers with different personalities. So after a while, they just learn the cueing system that the teachers are using.
Yeah.
But, I've had some people say to teachers, don't use your hands that much. It's like, no, that stuff is, there's no data that using your hands too much is distracting to students. After a while, they just figure out your cueing system. That's fine.
Todd, the thing I have learned in the last 20 some odd minutes is that you are a wealth of information, knowledge, and resources. And I fully intend to nag you on a regular basis. And,
awesome.
Maybe when I'm down in North Carolina visiting my sister, we can get together and brainstorm all sorts of things, because I'm loving
I would love
what
that.
you're sharing. I think that the people in Mastery Chat really got a lot of value out of this today. I am honored that you came and joined us. So thank you so much, Todd.
Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. This has been really fun.
Awesome.
I have to say, we have a few things that we want to remind all of our listeners. Tiff, do you want to take the honors?
Sure.
Right. So we need to talk about next week and the thing coming out tomorrow. So you go crazy.
Got it. So next week we have another awesome Mastery Chat moderator. This is Casey Bell. A lot of you guys, if you're on Twitter, you're probably familiar with Casey Bell. She is pretty enthusiastic about everything. And she is also she's the Shake Up Learning girl, if you will. She's on Twitter at Shake Up Learning. And she is going to be talking about, if you give me 30 seconds, I'll be able to answer that. In the meantime, Ray, talk about tomorrow.
Okay, tomorrow we have a brand new course launching on Teach Better Academy. And if you have not explored Teach Better Academy, we do the majority of our fun shenanigans. We're either on social media or we're out training teachers at, live at their districts. But we have this Teach Better Academy portal where you can go in and literally take courses on a ton of topics. The one coming out tomorrow is all on DOK with his depth of knowledge. It was created by Chad Erskowski, who's our CEO and hero, essentially. And I love this course because it's totally free. And while some courses have a cost, the best part is doing the subscription, let's be honest. But the whole point is that we have a ton of free courses to make sure that you have some general ideas on all these topics. DOK is going to be an amazing one that's completely free. I love every element of this course, and you can get a certificate at the end. And so for those of you that have heard us talking about the mastery framework a lot of us use, for those of you who has been exploring on how to better scaffold information to really reach your students, maybe through your lessons, but also on assessments, DOK is a great and easy place to start. And this course is accessible tomorrow. So go get it at teachbetter.com. There's an Academy login at the very end of the tab, and go click on Academy login, or you can go to just teachbetteracademy.com. Either way, takes you to the same spot, and it releases tomorrow. I'm so stoked. I'm pretty sure I used my hands a lot in that. So sorry, I'm really excited.
We really, really, really like giving teachers free stuff. That's kind of our jam. And we really like making courses and talking on Facebook and tweeting on Thursday nights. We just love all of this stuff. Okay, so Casey Bell's topic next week is interesting in the sense that it's kind of like a merge of several different ideas coming together. So we're starting out talking about some technology and kind of transforming learning from a traditional model, if you will, which means a lot of different things nowadays, but kind of innovating in learning. And then we're talking about how students can share their work with the world and how, what kind of tech challenges we might have in that journey. So Casey Bell, Shake Up Learning, She's going to be here. We're going to be talking Twitter. It's going to be fabulous. And I am like really excited by some of the comments that we have right now.
So fun.
Bianca, we are so glad you found us too. We, like I said, we love our Mastery Chat family. It's getting huge and it's awesome. Tall, he's going to take the DOK course. Of course he is. Tall is just, of course he's going to do that. So Todd, thank you again for being a part of this. Thank you everybody who is watching, who was part of the chat, and who has listened to us talk now for a long time about how excited we are about teaching and learning and having Todd here with us. So you guys are all awesome.
Thank you so much.
And we'll see you next week.
Thank you for all that you do. Have a great Friday.